Okay, we're back with the partial quotient method of division. And I wanted to explain that this type of division is actually used when we do long division. That is the division of a dividend that has more than 2 digits, such as 937 divided by 4. Now, the way that we used to do it, you will recall, is that we would simply consider how many times 4 can go into 9, and it's twice. Subtract the product of 4 times 2 from 9, and that would give you a remainder of 1. Bring down the 3. 4 times 3, rather 4 goes into 13 3 times. And then finally 4 goes into 17 4 times. And you would have, in this case, a remainder of 1. So our answer would be 234, remainder 1. Now, the problem with teaching this type of division to 4th graders is that we take a few things for granted. We take for granted the fact that they will place their answer, that is their quotient, in the right place. What we will often find, though, 4th graders doing is something like this. 4 goes into 9 twice, and this is the part where they might get confused, where they typically get confused. They might put the 2 above the 3. 4 times 2 is 8, and then they will subtract that 8 from 93 and get 857 left, and then consider how many times 4 will go into 857, and write down 9 because that's a maximum number of times. And tell us that the answer is 29 with a remainder of 821. Believe me, I've seen it before, many times before. So this partial quotient method allows much less room for error. And I'll explain it to you in just a second. So the same problem, 937 divided by 4, would be done this way. You have to consider how many multiples of 4 would actually go into this number. And what I like to say is that we give students a launching pad, that is a number that they can start from in order to get going. Let me explain further. You'll see your children come home and have a problem like this, and then underneath it they'll have a line that goes down here. This line separates the problem from what we are calling the think area, with the initials TA for think area. Now, I'm asking them to consider how many multiples of 4 can go into the entire dividend of 937. And if they have no idea, I always ask them to begin with 10 times the divisor. So in this case, 10 times the divisor would be equal to 40. Then they take this number and they subtract it from the dividend. And they get 897 left over. At that point, students typically realize that they didn't get very far. So they might want to try a higher multiple of 4. They might want to try something like 100 times 4 equals 400. And this is where it's important that students not only know their basic facts of 1 times 4, but also know that when you're multiplying by a multiple of 10, you would just do the basic fact of 1 times 4 equals 4, and then tack on the 2 zeros for the 100. So I'm going to subtract 400 from 897. And I'm down to 497. So students typically will recognize that they can take another 100 times 4 out of this number. subtract that from 497 and get 97. Now, they will recognize at this point that they cannot take another 100 times 4 out of 97 because 97 is too small. So they might consider taking another 10 times 4, or perhaps for those who really are able to see where they're going, they might take 20 times 4, which is 80. Subtract 80 from 97, and you get 17 left over. At this point, they will consider how many times the divisor 4 can go into the dividend of 17, and that would be 4 times. Subtract 16 from 17, and they will have a remainder of 1, and recognize that 4 cannot go into 1. Therefore, 1 must be the remainder. So the remainder is 1, and at this point, they will simply count how many times they were able to pull 4 out of 937. So this time they pulled it out 10 times. Here 100, here another 100, so that makes for 210 times. Plus another 20 is 230 times, plus another 4 is 234 times. So your quotient will be 234 with a remainder of 1.